This is the Career Clinic podcast, and I'm your host, Ronnie Dickerson Stewart. I hope that you have hopped into this week with the best feelings, all the great vibes. For me, I have that end of quarter energy. And for me, that means so many things. For business owners, that means taxes and all those things. But for just the average human, that means that as we've come to the quarter in the first quarter of the year, that we're getting into things like spring and vacations and holiday planning and spring break, especially for those of us who have children. But I am in full on, can't wait for spring to finally come on in here. Don't move anything around, but also I am just full on wanting to be saved from pollen. But I'm actually gleefully wrapping up the last 2 weeks of the first quarter of 2023. And I wanted to take you a little bit behind the scenes of what I do to wrap my quarter in hopes that you see something that you could actually implement as you think about your work, right? So, as a coach and a business leader, and just a leader in general, I use a portion of my quarter to do a retrospective. And for me, I call it a QBR, which means quarterly business review. And though my retrospective includes a deep dive into things like sales and financial performance, plus it has the word business in it, it is a process that's actually extremely personal. And because I like to give a little bit of a behind the scenes view of how I work whenever I can, and that I know, and because I know that this is something that you could actually implement too, I'm sharing a portion of my personal QBR process with you. So just the personal portion, we won't get into financials or sales. So take a look at these questions or listen to these questions that I ask myself quarterly. And these prompts serve as a set of essentially accountability measures, and they also just regularly help me slow down, appreciate myself, appreciate my work, and then just really appreciate how I show up in the world. So what I do is I just essentially set aside 1 to 2 hours, and I just workshop these questions with myself. And these questions have come up from me just understanding not necessarily everything about work. I'm learning something about work and how I like to work as a coach and a consultant every single day. But these questions have come up because they were deeply rooted in my values, how I see myself, how I want to show up in the world, what brings me joy, and how I want to experience life. A lot of times when we see folks kind of do retrospectives and performance reviews and business reviews, they're very one-sided. They're one-sided and the orientation is towards a business or a company or a person or an entity that sits outside of us. So we're being reviewed in this very structured way often, especially if you work for an organization or a corporation. You're being reviewed for the business outcomes and aims that are most important to the company, which of course you're under contract to deliver against. That's not a bad relationship at all because you're in business with the company. You have a certain set of skills, they have a certain set of needs, they have contracted you for that need. You are there to deliver that. You're likely an at-will employee or an employee with a structured contract. At the end of that either need state for them needing that certain set of skills, or at the end of that desire to work with the company, you can break that contract, right? And so the things that you do from a performance standpoint are really to keep you on track with the things that you agreed to in that contract. We spend a lot of our time looking at those things and a lot of our time performing to the metrics or the goals or the KPIs that are outlined in those bodies or in those platforms, but we don't spend an equal amount of time or even more time really thinking about the whole of ourselves, the thing that really even puts us in a position to propel that work forward, or the whole of ourselves that applies to the rest of our life. So here are questions again that I ask myself, and I block off again 1 to 2 hours with myself quarterly, and this goes into my quarterly business review. The first kind of prompt or set of questions is about gratitude. I ask, what am I grateful for that occurred over the last 90 days? And then who and to whom have I extended gratitude to over the last 90 days? Okay, so gratitude. And all these prompts are within the last 90-day window. So, and then it's presence. What and who was I most present for? And then who or what was I least present for? And then what were the results and outcomes of those actions? Again, so what and who was I most present for? Who was I least present for? And then what was the result of that presence or lack of presence? Then one of my favorite words is gap opportunities. So it's a gap mixed with opportunities, because when there's a gap, there's something to overcome, and that could be an opportunity. So I call this gap opportunities. So here are the questions with the gap opportunities section: is what challenges did I run into? What was the root cause of these challenges? What did I do about them? And then what do I learn? What did I learn from those challenges? And then, so that's gap opportunities. The next section is wins. The questions are, what can I count as wins and how did these wins occur? Okay, so we're getting a little bit into diagnosis, not just the details, but the diagnosis. And then finally, more of an overarching question: lessons is a prompt. Lessons. What were my most significant lessons? Then how will I leverage these lessons moving forward? And then, is there any lesson I need to consider and explore more deeply, right? Because sometimes we have lessons and we hope that we never have to go through them, experience them, or learn them again, especially if they're, let's call it, hard won lessons. But the reality is sometimes we need a deeper dive into some of the lessons that have come up for us. And we should give ourselves space to consider that, and ourselves space to show up for ourselves in a way that would allow us to fully live into that lesson. And then the final prompt area, and this is something that I have found personally provocative and it's helped me show up as a more whole human, is this: shareholder outlook. What is the status of my relationships with each of my main shareholders? In my case, that's my spouse and my children. And then what feedback have they shared or have I observed? And then what do they need from me next quarter? So this is such an important prompt question for me as a person who wants to be able to show up for life as much as I show up for my work, which is part of life. And when I think about my main shareholders, those are absolutely my husband, my kids. My kids are little ones, so I can't always, know, or they can't always communicate to me what they need. But feedback is also something that you can observe. Like, are my kids fussy? Are they clingy? Do they need more mom time? Like, those are the things that I can really, take the time to understand and kind of look at, to perhaps think about how I spend my time or how I orient my schedule so that my main shareholders are taken care of. All right. So as March comes to a close, and in the interest of taking a moment to honor yourself and your work, and in the interest of me helping you be your own best accountability partner, I invite you to block some time to ask yourself these questions. And, the conversation that we often have with ourselves in the course of moving through a year, those conversations actually can be fleeting. We don't always take the time to sit with ourselves as the years are going by or as the year is occurring, to really understand like the incremental things that happen that really make it up. And when we get to, let's say, a December 31st, and we look back and say, "Ooh, that year really flew by," it's true, because it's a real feeling. But there's oftentimes that we can't even point to the things that brought us joy, or the things that we're incredibly proud of, because the year is flown, but it's really compounded. All the things have compounded to make it feel like it's accelerated, but it's the same amount of hours and days and dates that we've had in the other year. Sometimes we just fit a lot into it. And sometimes that allotness is not the right amount of time or things we should be doing. And so these quarterly, for me, again, QBR is a quarterly business review. These quarterly touch points allow us to really have time to reflect, have time to think, and then have time to slow down the pace of our time and our year and be way more intentional. For a deeper kind of behind the scenes, I actually took a business spring break. Now, I didn't take all of my days off and I wasn't completely out of pocket, but I reduced my time like on camera and with clients significantly for a week, so that I could just be in my own head, be in my own brain, to take in information, to go through my own coaching. Coaches have coaches too, the good ones do, to really do the things that allow me to explore some of these questions more deeply, or allow me to schedule time towards the end of the month to, get back in and ask myself these questions once maybe bigger projects were pushed through. So I take the time, and I've learned to take the time to slow down my year. I actually don't want the years to feel like they move past quickly. I want them to feel like they moved at whatever pace they're supposed to move at. And I want to remember, like, I don't want to not remember the things that I experienced. I don't want to not remember the feelings that I had. I don't want to I guess not remember, the word is forget. I don't want to forget the impact I've driven forward. I don't want to forget all the things that really make up a life. And I notice with the world of work, I notice with technology, I notice with even how we're able to connect virtually, it's really easy to pack so much in. And that could be a good thing for some folks if that's what you so desire for your season. But I also know that for me, the diagnosis is it's made it look like some of the things that occurred didn't get their just due. And it takes away a little bit of my ability to be as present as I want to for things and for people that are important to me. So this is why I do a QBR. And I'm getting better at it year by year, month by month, week by week. And I invite you to be a part of this process with me. It may be imperfect, but if you do nothing more than even if it's 30 minutes as you close out the month to consider these questions, I think you're doing yourself a great service and doing yourself justice in terms of really being intentional about how you spend your time and the year moving forward. Thank you so much for listening to the Career Clinic podcast. I always want to stay connected with you. If you are not connected with me directly, first of all, I'm giving you a huge side eye, but also look into the notes or details section of this podcast or video if you're watching us on YouTube, and go to oheyjoin.com. It's oheyjoin.com. And that will get you added to our newsletter. It's the Oh Hey Monday newsletter list for our insiders. We call them Oh Hey Coach Insiders, the folks who are part of that community. And I just like to slide into your inbox each Monday with a good word. And if you were on our list this past week, you see that I'm talking about this very topic about how we close out a quarter. And so every week you're going to get some goodness from me. And then also, if we have updates, as we have updates, or as we have new offerings, including opening our private coaching and group coaching offering, which is what we call The Collective. It's a group coaching membership program that is just phenomenal. Like the folks in the collective are just so, I don't know, they're just so impressive as their coach. I get to be in awe of them, but I get to help them navigate and support them in navigating some of the most important times in their career. They're like top executives, or executives on the rise. They are known names. They are just folks who are making a mark in their respective industries. And in that time, when you reach that part of your career, and when you're on your way there, you have the desire to get there. You know, there's still folks who are in the collective who are on their way there. You just need in a lot of cases, someone to support you through that. And then that's what we do in the collective with me as their coach. But then the peer coaching is just an entire different level of delight to see those connections happen too. So we are opening the doors to the collective again in the next couple of months. And so you will hear it first in our newsletter about joining. We'll open the doors first to our folks who are in our community already, and then everyone else will hear next. So go to oheyjoin.com so we can be more deeply connected and so that you can get all the goods. All right, until next week, I cannot wait to be in community with you. Bye.